You might catch yourself sliding in and out of it. You might catch yourself sliding in and out of a hallucinatory state. Just relax and enjoy it. Just relax and enjoy it.
This is an experiment in mind formation. Information. Forming, controlling, operating your mind and your brain. We're using digital techniques to overload, scramble, confuse, unfocus your mind. The natural state of the brain is chaos. Chaos is beautiful.
Gary Sanders, what's up, dude?
What's happening?
I'm just chilling, man. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show and like talk to me and have this conversation. We talked, a few times like over the phone and over the internet briefly and kind of connected a little bit, but I really appreciate the opportunity to like sit down and actually have a conversation with you for an extended amount of time and bullshit about the Dharma and the nature of reality and truth and all of these wonderful things that lead to awakening, right?
Meanwhile, you're wearing a Jim Jones t-shirt.
It's a paradox, man. It's like a koan.
I could not be more pleased about that, by the way.
It's a paradox. It's a koan, right?
I mean, that's life, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Oh.
Like a Mandelbrot pattern just folding in on top of itself over and over and over again. So you want to just tell people a little bit about yourself and what you do and who you the role that you play?
Of course, your video on that my eyes rolling. So I've been sober for a while. That's part of my story, right? I'll have 17 years, like pretty much 4 weeks from a couple days from now.
Congratulations. What was your DOC, if you don't mind my asking?
Well, cocaine was my big thing, but it really was what got me sober was finally the realization that it wasn't just cocaine. It was, I even though I didn't do it every day, I abused alcohol, I abused pills, I abused marijuana, but yeah, cocaine's the thing that I would go on real 15 plus years of hardcore benders,
right,
over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a wild ride since then.
So did you get into like the Dharma first or recovery first? Like what was your path with that?
I did get into Dharma first, you're in Florida. I was living in, let's see, technically I was probably living in Bradenton.
Okay.
And my good friend Bradford Pomeroy, who punk rock Brad, he turned me on to Japanese Zen. He was 30 something years ago. He was a big Japanophile and just loved all things Japan, including Zen, and turned me on to it. And I'm pretty sure it was Suzuki Roshi's book, Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind is the first book I read and really resonated with me. And, and then it was just one of those things that I kept, at the time, I was still pretty recently removed from the religious cult I was raised in, the Jehovah's Witness cult. I was born into that. I moved out of my parents' house at whatever it was, 17, 18 years old, moved into a party house in Bradenton. And I wanted no part of anything that seemed religious at all. And was turned on to Zen Buddhism, and just that, I loved watching, David Carradine's Kung Fu, and I loved watching old Kung Fu movies.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
stuff like that. And, so the image of the monks, slouching in meditation and getting whacked with the big bamboo sticks, you know,
Yeah.
like, and then the, you know, the incense and you know, and you know, that
No,
whole
no.
the
I know, I get
concoction of incense
it.
and like I didn't want any part of that you know, that kind of strictness or that kind of, you know, what looked like religion to me, or, you know, even rituals. Um, but, you know, also, it was just this thing that resonated with me, you know, this thing like, oh, I can actually heal myself. I can, and, you know, and I had the very much the misconception of like, oh, I could control my thoughts. Or I could get rid of my thoughts, you know, through
Right.
meditation. Get rid of, and yeah. Um, and yeah, so it's this thing that kept turning to, and when I finally went to get sober, you know, being a hardcore atheist still, to that point, you know, from 18 years old to 35 years old, when I finally, you know, started to get my shit together.
Right.
I, after trying all the other alternatives, and, you know, by then I'm living in Los Angeles, so there's lots of different alternatives, but nothing with really great support. So reluctantly, I turned back to AA, but you know, I found Kevin Griffin's book, One Breath at a Time, and so I was
Okay.
just like, oh, here's a non-theistic Buddhist, you know, approach to the 12 steps, and so
Right.
you know, I guess I'll do that, and yeah. And then, you know, and then that was that's been a whole other journey since then.
What's been the journey since then?
I mean, yeah, I'm still remembering your question of like, you know, tell us who you are.
Yeah, tell us,
You know,
what's the role
part of
that you
why I
have?
kind of described that whole thing is because like you know, the 12-step thing of telling your story, you know, or
Right.
maybe you get asked to go, you know, to chair a meeting, or, you know, speak at a meeting or something like that, and, you know, tell your experience, strength, and hope, tell your
Right.
story. And because of my practice, and we kind of, I think we kind of talked about it a little bit before you hit record. Because of my practice, uh, I mean, I've really, you know, realized that, you know, these stories about myself, these identities, these labels I've you know, worn or
All,
been placed on me, they're all bullshit,
it's
you know.
all an
So
illusion.
yeah, yeah. It's like, you know, my story changes all the time. Like tell
But
my story,
but
who and
yeah,
what I am.
actually,
A
the
process.
the
It's
question I
changed.
asked, I said, "What do you tell the people what you do?"
Oh,
Which is
uh,
action,
yeah,
comma,
yeah.
and then I said, and then I asked, and a little, tell them the role that you play.
Mm, mm, mm. Yeah. All right.
Because that's the case, right? I mean, that's what we're doing here. That's the practice. That's awakening, is like seeing through that illusion of the self, that illusion of the identity, the story, the narrative that we tell ourselves, the narrative that we tell ourselves about anything. It's the beliefs and concepts, right? To my understanding, like awakening is seeing through, cleaning the lens of perception to the point where you can see through the conceptual world and see reality as it is. Just truth is truth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, you know, the whole, you know, the three marks of existence,
Right.
right? You know, impermanence, easy to realize. You know, dukkha, pretty easy to realize.
Right.
But the anatta part, you know,
That's the hard
the
one.
and I much prefer the translation of not self
Same.
than
Same.
no self, because, you know,
Well,
talking about identities and who and what we are and all in roles and all that kind of stuff, like, it's pretty obvious, or at least the you know, it sure seems like there's something here, you
there's,
know,
yeah, there's some sort of
and
essence, whatever it is,
yeah,
underneath these layers. Once we go past the form and we go past the thoughts and we go past the witness, then what's left is there's, emptiness, but in a non-dual sense, emptiness is everything. And so, it's the totality, it's the one, and it's just that unified field, right? Like essentially.
yeah, yeah. Well, you know, where I've come, especially with the whole anatta thing, you know, where I've kind of landed, at least now anyway, and this changes all the time.
Mm.
But who and what I am is just a whole a myriad of processes
Yeah.
that are constantly in shift,
Mhm.
and in relation to a millions and millions of other processes, and yet there's still, there's no solid static version of me. It's constantly changing.
Right.
But the government placed a number on me, and this
Right.
that number owes taxes
Right.
and has responsibilities. I and this might be helpful as far as non-dualism goes. And I've been, for many years, I was really resistant to non-dualism because a lot of what I heard to me, seemed a bit of a cop-out. And it seemed a little bit of maybe even like a spiritual bypass, like especially talking about the no self versus not self. Like, oh, no, Anada, man, no self. Like, there's nobody here, bro. Like, I don't,
Right.
And that
Right.
just always
Yeah.
seems
Yeah.
so.
No, I think that's a huge misconception, right?
Yeah.
I think that people just it's how can I put it? It's an idea that's just not conveyed very well. It's like most people don't teach it well enough to where it's completely understandable and able to be realized. Like they get these ideas about it, like, oh well, since I don't know, none of us exist anyway, so I can just be an asshole. And it's like, no, it's not like that. It's like, I mean, we're clearly here in a sense. I mean, we are and we aren't, right? Like it's the illusion of Maya, the projection of whatever. We can talk about that, but
and where I like to how I like to play that out, and I do want to kind of get back to the no self thing, because there's one piece with non-dualism that I want to touch on, but how the best way for me to play this all out is to just not take it personally. Like the whole not self. Like, there's no reason to take this stuff personally, because it's not like the stuff that seems so personal and seems like it's happening to me or I'm the victim of, like, so much of it, it's just happening.
Yeah,
it's a process, and I'm in a process, I'm in the middle of it. And so why not just dance with life, flow with life, rather than, fight it all.
Yeah, it's just energy fields colliding, and weird shit happens, but it's not happening to anything. Like, again, like we were talking about, the identity is just this story we tell ourselves about who we are, because it's trying to make sense of time, which is like this one happening, all happening at the same time, folding in on top of itself like a weird Mandelbrot pattern, that's experienced linearly because our brains can't conceive of anything else because we're not on that level of consciousness yet, but we could be. And I was actually thinking earlier, this is a weird thought I had, and I posted it on Facebook, but I said, I think, let me look it up real quick, because I'm not going to remember it exactly, but if I look it up, I'll read it to you. And it seemed like a good idea at the time. We got to find it. Said, if we were to keep opinions and beliefs off of the internet and only show what is really happening in the world, the internet could be a beautiful thing that leads to global awakening. We have the opportunity to merge consciousness through the senses via the internet, which could push us towards unity. It would have to be pure truth, though. Reality as it is, with no thought involved. Just reality experienced directly. There could be no I think whatsoever. Thoughts aren't reality, they're thoughts. We could seriously all wake up. And I mean, that's true, right? Like if we just straight truth, things as they are, just as they are.
Of course, here's my
easier said than done.
The oppositional brain of like, but so many things are not universal truths too, where it could seem so much like a truth to you, which every bit of every cell in your body, like, yeah, this is my truth, I know this is true, this is my direct experience,
right?
Yet I could have a totally different perspective.
Well, yeah, it's always going to be different, right? Because it's viewed through a different aperture.
Yeah,
but it can still be close enough that we could at least get on board more than we are now.
If
I think that's what I was getting to. Is like we could at least get more on board than we all are now, because
let go of the spin, let go of the preference, let go of the
all the infighting and identity politics and shit going on in the country now is like It's maddening, especially as somebody with a hardcore, like real Dharma practice. Like my whole thing is like seeing through the the illusion of the identity, and then everyone's like, I'm this, I'm that, I'm this, I'm that, and it's like, those are thoughts, man. Those are all just thoughts.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm not saying that to try. I don't want to offend anybody. Like, and I'm not trying to offend anybody, but that's the reality of it. Is that those are all just thoughts. Whatever you feelings are sensations felt within the body. Other than that, emotions and all these things are just sensations combined with thought, and these thoughts lead to beliefs, and then we start believing whatever.
Yeah, and take it down to what it's just impermanent phenomena that's arising and passing.
That's it.
And yeah, well, yeah. So yeah, the one thing I wanted to, I guess, certainly relates to, you know, I mentioned non-dualism. You know, to me it seemed like, you know, so much of what I heard was a cop out, and also where I've gone in my practice, you know, especially after getting sober since 2007, I really like to go out of my way to push myself, you know, to push myself outside my comfort zone, because that's where we grow. That's where we learn, outside our comfort zone.
You just did some of that, didn't you?
Oh yeah, taking robes.
Yeah. You want to talk about that? How was that, man? I've been wanting to ask you.
Yeah, but I went to study with a non-dual teacher, Matt Flickstein, and you know, he used to be Bhante Gurunatana's right-hand man. He's like the one that found Bhante G's, you know, place in West Virginia. So he's a Theravada guy, you know, Theravada teacher, but also really kind of blended into non-dualism. And so I studied with him for like a year or so, and one of the conversations that we had about anatta, and he was bringing in some Taoist stuff that was pretty interesting. But the whole, he said that, you know, even though there's no solid, you know, anything, just, you know, just processes, et cetera, yes, and we still need to act as if.
Exactly.
We still need to, you know, do the next right thing that's in front of us to do. You know, I should talk about paying taxes, you know.
I mean, just because it's an illusion doesn't mean we don't have to play the game.
Yeah.
You know,
but I really like that. Like, yeah, just to act as if, you know, act as if you're in control, and, you know, and got everything up, you know, got the whole plan in front of you. And yeah, so meanwhile, just don't take anything personally.
I don't know about you, but I'd like to ask you if your experience is kind of anything like mine. I've noticed that since I've been able to kind of like see through that illusion of the self, right? Like, and like, oh, it's just all a fucking story I've been telling myself my entire life. You know, it's funny. I even said, well, you know, we have to use that word to relate, but it's, you know, just a story that we use to define who we are. But again, we're just this set of processes. But since I've been able to see through that, like my life has just improved like drastically on so many levels. Like my work has been like through the roof. Like I've been working less and making way more money. You know, like my practice is stronger. My relationships are all stronger. Like everything in my life, like I'm in better shape. Like everything in my life has improved like tenfold.
Yeah.
Has your experience been anything like similar to that?
Yes. Yes. And, my mind went about 13 different ways, in relation to that. The main answer is yes. Like, you know, when I'm not tied down, well, that's the thing. I've, you know, because of my practice, I've learned that whatever label I placed on myself or identity or whatever, all of them have been so limiting, and I'm so much more than any of those things, even combined.
Right.
You know, and when I allow myself to rest back into the reality, you know, beyond the labels, beyond the titles, beyond all that stuff, like, yeah, it's pretty enormous, and it's amazing. And, you know, and then just learning to dance with life, you know, instead of trying to control it or fight it or whatever. Like, it's just so much easier. So much easier.
It's so much easier. There's so much aversion and just pushing back against life, trying to avoid change, fix, or control. whatever
Yeah, or
situation that was.
manipulations or
Yeah,
games
yeah,
or like
exactly.
all that bullshit. Yeah.
uh,
It's just so much
yeah,
easier. That still blows my mind how just the simplest things of like, being honest and doing the right thing is just so much easier. So much easier. And it's
it's
just,
it's
yeah.
it's it's like light speed easier. It's insane. And the funniest thing is, and they talk about this all the time in different practices, but it's like, especially in Zen, it's like it's right in front of you. It's the water we're swimming in. Like
Yeah.
Nibbana is the water we're swimming in. It's this super mundane thing. It's been there the whole time,
Yeah.
and you just clearly visible but hard to see, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That that whole the whole thing about enlightenment or
Right.
realization or nibbana or whatever. I really like to frame it. The Buddha realized liberation. The Buddha realized freedom. He didn't go anywhere. He didn't jump through any hoops. I mean, it was
Yeah.
literally just he just sat
It's like,
there
oh,
the tree and
okay.
realized this thing that's already here,
Yeah, yeah,
and and that's the thing, we can always tap into that even
yeah,
when shit is really, really hard.
yeah. It's always available.
Yeah, yeah. That's I and that's what keeps me going,
Well, it's this thing that we all experience anyway. Like we just don't. I think most people that don't have like a practice just aren't. They
Yeah,
don't have the language to describe it, and they don't know what they're looking for. But as practitioners, we do, and so it's easier to see when we're in those states and notice when we're in those states, and it's also easier to notice when we're not in those states and we're slipping out of it. It's noticed when like
yeah,
it's with, and I mean that's why they call it a practice, and it's a training, is to training
yeah,
the mind to see when we've drifted away from that place of rest and
yeah,
started to get caught back up into the whirlwind of bullshit that is life.
yeah. And that's why having a really skillful teacher and or I would prefer the and part, Kalyanamita,
Yeah.
having close spiritual friends to be able to do this kind of thing. Because, despite how far we are on the path, we're still going to have our blind spots.
Right.
We still have our conditioning, and we still have
100%.
our shit.
Oh yeah.
Maybe, maybe it's way, way better for, it's less of a burden, but there's still some of the well, and also the world's changing all the fucking time. So, getting, learning some of the new way, like I need to learn about gender, and I need to learn about, my role as a white cis male in the world, and the way it's viewed now is not what it was when I was a younger man,
Well,
and so, getting, and that's why as did I use the term skillful?
right.
having really good
And
skillful
and
teachers
see,
and friends,
and
to help.
these are difficult conversations to really have. And well, not really, because if you're just talking about truth, you can still remain skillful, but it's not always going to be pretty, right? Like skillful doesn't mean pretty.
Absolutely. I love that part. It just reminds me of the thing of like acceptance doesn't mean that we have to like it.
Right. Right. Like, I mean, well, even if we get down to it, and, if we're talking about like race and gender, these are all just concepts at the end of the day. Like, sure, they're a thing and they exist, but they only exist because it's an agreed upon thing. Like
It's an agreed upon
it's
thing now in
right.
here,
Yeah, exactly,
in a
exactly,
different
exactly. And
other
things are
places.
constantly evolving, but,
Yeah.
but the reality of the situation is we're all just the same. We're all the same. We're all
Yeah.
just this consciousness having this human experience. It doesn't matter what color you are, what gender you are. We're all just experiencing life, and sure, we're going to have different conditions around that, but
Yeah.
we're all just having this consciousness. And I'm pretty sure that the consciousness that I'm experiencing is very similar to the consciousness that you're experiencing and that other people are experiencing, at least in the seeing and the hearing. You know what I'm saying? In pure consciousness arising through the sense gates, it's going to be roughly the same.
Yeah. This is an interesting topic because of just my experience, because of the environment and the situations I've been in, moving from Los Angeles up to Portland, Oregon, in 2015 and being part of the, Portland Insight, a Sangha there.
Right.
Portland is very liberal. Portland is very, in comparison to Southern California, and certainly Florida, Portland, Oregon is very ultra PC, compared to other places. And then also, being part of recovery communities that are a lot more diverse, and then add in a lot of trauma as well. Right. Both Buddhist sanghas and recovery communities, very, very similar, and there's so much trauma that's there. Yeah. And now, so we have these teachings that are 2,600 years old, and these beautiful teachings about, boundless compassion and boundless loving kindness.
Absolutely.
It's great, but we also have to, I've seen, teachers fall into the, trying to teach some of these ultimate kind of extreme versions of what the Buddha taught, which is it's just that's what the Buddha taught. But then, asking a person of color to extend boundless, unconditional compassion to all beings, including the oppressors and Donald Trump and that kind of thing. Like nowadays, right now, I don't feel comfortable trying to push boundless compassion onto everyone. I really like to, where I'm at in the way I present things, I really like to talk about the reality of the situation and what are you able to do now? And let's work with that.
Right. I mean, and I get that. But again, and this is a tough topic, because if we're talking about like if you're going for awakening, like if you're going for like the real deal, Holyfield, let's do this, like I'm gonna buckle down and we're going for it. Like it does take having to see through all that.
Totally. Yeah.
And it does take boundless compassion. But once you see through all the bullshit anyway, once you see through all the illusions, like the Brahma Viharas arise spontaneously on their own. Like, it's like not even something that you really even need to cultivate, because when there's no separation between self and other, there's just love for the one, just the one, you know what I'm saying? Like it just arises naturally.
Yeah, but it's not just meditation, and that's why we need to look at the full path.
No, it's not even meditation.
The whole part about living ethically, is so
Sila's everything. Sila's everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, without Sila, you're not going to get anywhere. It's going to be impossible to have. The sitting practice.
So many teachers don't talk about Sila. Especially when we get into the whole, the McMindfulness thing, when it's just about meditation. Yeah. And
let's put meditation on the back burner. Like, meditation is great and it's wonderful, but the practice is off the cushion. Like 100%, the practice is living in the world. Like the cushion is the primer for the world. That's all it is. It's the launch pad for the rest of your life. Yeah. It's where you can sit and view things as they are. You view these characteristics as they are. The reality of life is as it is. And then that extends into the world, and that's been my practice. We were talking about this a little bit before we started recording. I took like a 3 or 4 month break from sitting altogether, and was just like, I'm just going to be as present as possible in everything else. I'm just I'm just going to try to practice mindfulness in daily life to the nth degree. And that's what I did for just 3 or 4 months. Like I would sit when I would do groups, and I would, just times like that, I would sit when I was with other people. But as far as like an at home, like I'm waking up and I'm sitting at night, and I just stopped altogether. And when I got back on the cushion after that break, like my practice went through the roof. Yeah. Like that's when I was able to really like have that realization of like seeing through the identity and all these things. That's when I started really getting these deep insights, was after taking this extended break.
Yeah. And as you're kind of describing that, even before you talked about your break, I've as much as, well, the thing is, it's just so synergistic. Like, if I was to only practice meditation without really looking at, how I'm showing up in the world.
Yeah.
still, the manipulations and the
Right.
lies and, and the fighting and, and all that kind of stuff, that would really limit my practice. But the fact that I am cleaning up my life, my practice gets deeper. And then I have found that, and this is a thing that kind of sucks to talk about in bigger, bigger kind of groups, because it is a thing
Mhm.
of privilege. But going on retreat for
Oh,
me, and we
100%.
talked about it, I just took
100%.
robes temporarily going on retreat, going on, longer retreats. That's where things really,
Oh yeah.
gone to a whole nother level. But then, and then that shows up in my life. I come off of retreat and back into life, and and I have this new perspective, or I have this new insight or new way of looking at things. And
Right.
it's just on and on and on from there.
Yeah. It's funny that you bring that up as like retreat being kind of a thing of privilege, because that's something I've said for a long time now. And it really is. It's like, and that's one thing that really bothers me about a lot of teachers out there. I'm not going to point fingers at anybody, but it's in every practice. There's always people who are looking to primarily make money over actually promote the practice, and it becomes this financial thing, and it's clear, like clearly visible, like I can see it, like
Yeah.
and it bothers me, because it's like the people that could really benefit from this practice the most are the people that probably can't afford those kind of things.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the good news is there are options
There
now.
are, and then,
You know,
like there's
uh,
and there's a tons of people out there that are doing
yeah,
really good work, and like
yeah,
keeping costs low, but there's also people
yeah.
out there that are like really like unethical.
Of
But,
course. Well,
but,
yeah. How about
but that's
yeah,
just the nature of reality itself.
yeah,
That there's always going to be a little from column A, a little from column B. But I can't say that it doesn't like rub me the wrong way. Like I'm trying to
yeah,
not, be like feel any type of particular way about it, but
yeah,
it
yeah,
is. I don't think it's right. Like that's why everything I do like donation based. Like
yeah,
everything
yeah,
I offer is donation based, because
yeah.
that's
The
the way it's supposed
uh,
to be.
me taking robes, I mean, I've been practicing with Dhamma and Tranquil Wisdom Insight Meditation. Like that's still, it's they're donation only,
Right.
and they offer online retreats, donation only.
How long have
Um,
you been practicing with that particular lineage?
Probably about 5 or 6 years now, I think, maybe a
Yeah.
little bit more.
And I take it you've sat retreat there numerous times. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
How was the taking ropes thing, man? What was that experience like for you?
The short answer is it was good with an asterisk.
What's the asterisk? What's the
It was,
asterisk? I have to ask.
what, where, so, and this is I am friends with a bunch of monks and nuns, people that have,
Yeah, yeah,
people that
me
have
too.
been in robes
Yeah,
for,
a long time.
decades. And despite that, but just within the first like day or two of wearing robes, like, holy shit, this is way harder than I thought. Just the whole thing about wearing the robes, and it's not like there's ties or zippers or I mean, there's just these big thick sheets that you're wrapping around your body, and
That's
that
fun.
was. And and I was in the Ozarks, and it was June in the Ozarks, and so it was kind of hot. It was hot and humid, and so that was all difficult. And and I will tell you, so it ended up much like many retreats where it started off, I was just like through the roof, like, oh, this is amazing, and then it gets really, really hard, and then like right at the end there's some insight, there's some breakthrough, and then it makes it all worth it, and oh, that was wonderful, I'm so glad I did it. And that's pretty much how it went. um, it was a little bit different, because I got a little bit of thankfully I got a little bit of help from a I don't know if I'd say unlikely source. I got a little help. I got in an unconventional way. During a retreat in an unconventional way, I got a little bit of help, and it made everything worth it. But I did, when I came out of it. One of the things is, I have no desire to take robes anytime soon again. I don't know if I'll ever do it,
Uh,
you know.
That's it, man. I'll tell you, I've contemplated it before. I've really thought about it. Like, do I want to take up robes like at any point? And the more I've thought about it, it's like, nah, nah, I really like enjoy the householder life too much. I enjoy like the things of the world,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
like and I think that's what we should do. Like we should enjoy life. We should still pursue practice, but we should enjoy life. And
yeah,
I think going for me, like quite honestly, like taking robes is an extreme, and then like just the pure hedonism of capitalism is also an extreme.
yeah,
And so like just living simply within this is
yeah.
the middle path for me.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, and that's pretty much how it is for me too. But again, like I really like to push myself,
Yeah, no, I get
And
it.
part of it was, early on when I was going on retreats, I was going with the whole, the against the stream Dharma punks crew,
Yeah,
uh and after a little while, it really started to feel like summer camp, like
right,
I'm friends with all the teachers and I'm friends with all the other, the fellow retreatants and it just, if I'm gonna, again, a thing of privilege, I could only take one retreat a year, just to be able to afford it and take off
right.
work and all
Yeah,
that kind of stuff. So if I'm going to do one retreat a year, I really want to push myself. And so after realizing that, and I've gone on monastic retreats, and at Spirit Rock and other
right,
places, which pretty much everywhere else a monastic retreat just means it's led by monks or
right,
nuns, and you usually you might adopt the 8 precepts on retreat, but you don't ordain yourself.
right.
But at Dhammasukha they do offer a and they really should call it. We were talking to the people that run the center. We were like, you really should call it temporary ordination retreats because
Right.
it's so much more than just monastic retreats. But I did this with the intention of pushing myself. And a big thing was, I've had a long, long beard for
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know 5, 6 years.
Yeah,
I mean, it was like competition level. I actually only at the very end I met some people that do beard competitions, and uh, I had like I could have won some more awards, but I've never done that. But like I knew I needed to shave off my beard to do this retreat.
huh.
And and that was a whole process of like, ooh, getting close to the, do I really want to do this thing? I've been doing this thing for so long, and man, I could enter a competition and win an award right now. But no, I did it, and I went through with it, and my wife helped me. She used to do hair, so she, we braided up my beard, and she cut it and did the
Right.
whole thing. And yeah, I at the end of the retreat, I realized I don't want to take robes again anytime soon. And if you can tell,
Growing the beard back
I
out.
started growing it back right away. This is like a month's growth since the retreat.
Well, like that's funny because like if you really think about it, like when you because you said you shaved the beard before you went to the retreat, right?
They asked me, they
So
actually,
like,
'cause normally the monk, well, they shave your head for you, but I already
right,
shaved my head.
yeah,
But they told me before, they're like, can you please shave your beard before you come out?
that's too funny. But yeah, man. So like, if you really think about it, like that's our like the practice is already like the intensity of practice has already started because there's this huge release of letting go of the beard, right? Like this thing that you kind of clung to, really, you were attached to.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
like there's this massive letting go, which is like real like
It,
third
yeah.
noble truth shit.
I have learned the value of that kind of that letting go, that release. There were years back. I'd been living in the house that my girls were raised in. We were in that house for like 14 years,
Hmm.
and then we moved up to Portland, and we got rid of a ton of stuff. Like I mean, we donated truckloads of, toys for my girls, but like old clothes for me and my ex, that had piled up through the years. And it was totally unintentional. Like, oh, we're just going to move. We want to downsize. We don't want to keep taking this stuff that we're not going to use anymore, but like visually looking at this mountain of clothes that we're donating, like that was so like, why was I hanging on to this? why was this in my closet still?
Right.
Like, and you know, and since just so many different things about, you know, my I still have a really good art collection, but I had a huge art collection.
Yeah.
My ex has half of it.
You know, it's funny, man. Like I got arrested in 2014 for some bullshit, possession stuff, and ended up doing like a year in jail. And while I was in jail, like that's kind of where I found this practice. You know what I'm saying? That's like when I really started like getting into meditation, and it started with that and kind of progressed from there. Actually, like getting into the Dharma, and you know, then it just snowballed. But like it's talking, you know, like this conversation really makes me think about it. It's like because I lost everything. Like I lost my house, I lost my cars, I lost my pets, I lost everything I had accumulated over my entire life. Like at age 31, 32, you know, like I lost everything. And then I got out of jail and, you know, started to accumulate, and then like it kind of happened again, you know, so I've lost everything like a couple times, like while I was trying to get to a place where I could actually get into a a position where I was able to start recovering and like get off the dope and, you know, all that shit. But I lost everything like a couple times, man. And it was like really like I didn't even, you know, I've never even thought about it until just now. There's like that's that huge like letting go of like everything, like completely like reinventing yourself. But you know, I there's that realization, and I did have this when I first got clean in 2018, was that, you know, when you have nothing, then the possibilities are endless because anything is possible. You know, there's nothing tying you down. There's nothing weighing you down. There's no attachments to weigh you down. So at that point, like you can pretty much do whatever.
You can do that anytime.
Yeah. I mean, you can, but I mean,
but yeah, when we start to let go of the things that hold us back, that weigh us down, that's when we really start experiencing some freedom. And whether it's material or emotional
yeah,
or, you know, so many other ways. And that's it just reminds me of and I haven't thought about this for a little while, but like my big intention in my practice for years and years is just, you know, learning to live lighter.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You know,
That's
it's like what the Fight Club, right? Tyler Durden. He said, the things you own end up owning you. And
yeah,
that can be extended to just, you know, just like you said, not just the material, but
yeah,
anything you think of as mine, anything you view from the reference point of mine, like
yeah,
my thoughts, my beliefs, my opinions, my feelings, my emotions, all of these things, mine. But once you see through the self, you're like, oh, like, you know what I mean?
yeah.
Like,
The
why did I carry that around for so long?
yeah, yeah. But there's been a lot of things that we've talked about that I just this has been ringing in my head. I love Father Greg Boyle. He started Homeboy Industries here in Los Angeles.
Okay.
It's like it's the most successful gang intervention program in the world.
Oh, that's
You know,
awesome.
and I mean he's a Jesuit priest, but he's really big on compassion, and he quotes Pema Chodron, and you know he's like closet Buddhist.
Yeah.
But one of the things he says is, "You're so much more than the worst thing you've ever done,"
Well, that's good.
and I
I
love
love
that.
that. That's
You're
so
so
good.
much more than the worst thing you've done. And just like I know how many times have I, you know, through the years have I just like, oh, I'm such a piece of shit,
Oh God.
like I just, you know, I'm never gonna get this thing, you know, whatever the thing is, you know, like, oh man, you
No,
know, yeah,
that was my main story for the longest time.
yeah,
Was I'm such a piece of shit.
yeah, yeah,
I'm such a fucking loser. What a piece of shit I am.
yeah,
I hate myself.
yeah,
That was my biggest story. That
yeah,
was the biggest weight that I ever carried. And dude, once that lifted,
yeah,
god damn, that's liberation.
yeah.
That's true liberation.
Yeah, well, and you know, the skillful response to all of that is compassion.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, we have, but you know, we have those stories because of old conditioning, and
Yeah.
you know, and you know, and I don't know, but like, you know, for so many of us that have stories like that, it was, you know, it's because we had, you know, one or both parents or caregivers we're not very healthy, and criticized us, or just belittled us all the time, abused us in a myriad of different ways, and
Right.
and then we grow up carrying that with us, or wearing that as part of our identity.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. Yeah,
That was one of
absolutely.
my things. I mentioned, I grew up Jehovah's Witness, so for so long I hung on to this story that I'm this at like 30 years old, 35 years old, I hung on to the story that I'm this religiously abused kid.
Right.
But then I also through the Dharma, and mix some science in there, like, okay, so I'm 35 years old, and I left that thing when I was 18, and there's probably only a couple cells left in my body that were that have been there since from 18 to 35 years old. So if like 99.9% of every cell in my body's been regenerated,
Yeah.
the only thing left of that is a fucking story.
Yeah. It's just the thought.
Yeah. Why am I hanging on to that? And why
Right.
am I letting that control things? Or why is that limiting my life? And then the realization of like, oh yeah, I'm so much more than that.
Yeah. 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 Dude, absolutely, man.
That's fucking freedom.
Yeah,
Jeez.
dude. For sure, man. Yeah. God. Yeah. It's so, like I said, it's just so liberating. Like actually like taking that off. You know what I mean? Is
Yeah.
that, is that
That's
you?
what it feels like too, man. Like it's I never grew up Catholic, but the whole thing, like hair shirt, like I heard that that term hair shirt, or the extreme renunciation practices that aesthetics, or monastics of different
Right.
whatever the religion is, wore. And like I never had the physical version of those, but I certainly had the mental and emotional kind of versions of those.
Right.
And then being able to unburden myself to take those off, like oof.
So this is something I've been thinking about lately. How do you feel about like secular Dharma versus, I mean, not even versus, but like compared to systems of Buddhism?
Yeah, uh I would I love Stephen Batchelor,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah,
his
great. Yes,
his, his
I
first
love
book,
Stephen.
Buddhism Beyond Belief.
Yeah, yeah,
I love that book. And for a long time, and specifically Stephen Batchelor, secular Dharma, secular Buddhism,
hmm,
his concept was to only look at the original teachings of the Buddha, and then everything else that he taught or discussed that was a belief system of the time, which would include rebirth, and kind of greater karmic law, but
right,
between lives and that kind of thing. That was all belief system of the Brahma period, of that time. So just put that aside, and let's only look at the original teachings of the Buddha, the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path. And that served me well for a really long time. So I have a deep appreciation for that.
hmm,
But also through the years, and because of my practice, I've learned to be more and more open to things. Like I don't hate religion anymore.
right,
I don't feel like I'm practicing a religion with Buddhism, but I don't hate or blame religion anymore.
right.
And I also, like, the Buddha talked about rebirth a whole lot, and he talked about all those things a whole lot. And I don't know if it's 100% true, but I'm open to it. And because of my conditioning, and being hardcore atheist, and then and wearing that identity of secular Buddhist,
Hmm,
I had judgment about some other traditions, like, I'll just Tibetan practice, or Vajrayana practice,
hmm,
the ones that were really in my eyes very devotional. And but the Buddha never taught that. That was the story. How the
right.
Buddha never taught that, and that's religion, and the Buddha didn't teach religion. And I've met so many practitioners and teachers in those other traditions, and there is no denial that there's a great value of the practice that they practice, whether it's devotional or chanting or whatever.
Oh yeah. And
So
do you think that do you think that like devotional practice and chanting and things like that like can't exist outside of the confines of like the system of organized religion? I mean,
I
it's still something
well,
you can do. It's all about action. It's, when we start just categorizing things into like these labels,
yeah,
again, it's just it's just the action, right? Like we can still do the things. We can still have devotion towards and reverence towards the Buddha and the Dharma and the Sangha without attaching to, oh, I'm a blah 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 blah, blah whatever,
yeah. Well, I mean, that's part of the path of awakening is the Buddha talked about shedding what's the oh shedding the belief of thinking that rites and rituals is going to bring
Right.
about your liberation.
Exactly.
So like it's not saying don't do it, but you just don't cling.
Right.
Don't think that like, me doing all these things is going to bring my
Yeah.
liberation.
Yeah.
It's yeah, but if it helps along the way, but so
It couldn't hurt, right? But
yeah.
I think, the Buddha was just like, yeah, that ain't it though. Like, like don't attach
So
to that.
I'll try and make this short. Stephen Batchelor, I love the guy,
Yeah.
and and again, his first book just rang my bell, loved it. When his book Confession of a Buddhist Atheist came out,
Hmm.
he went on he's from England, and
Yeah.
he came to the US, do a little bit of a book tour, and we ended up hosting him at Against the Stream. And
Right.
so, he came and he gave a talk, and I'm also here's something I still hang on to a little bit. I collect books. I collect hardcover books, and I like getting signed books,
Right.
from some of the authors. So, he's there, and he gave his talk, and then I show up with my book afterwards, and I wait in this long line, to get up to him. And so I'm thinking in my head, what am I going to tell him, And let's say this is maybe 2008 or 2009, and at the time there was kind of the big conversation in the different Buddhist magazines about like, what's American Buddhism going to look like?
Right.
What's this modern, this what's Western Buddhism going to look like? American Buddhism. And so, I'm thinking this thing in my head, and I get up in line to Stephen Batchelor, and I'm just thinking like, okay, this thing I'm going to tell him is just going to ring his bell.
Hmm.
And so, I'm having him sign, and I'm like, hey, Stephen, I'm like, with everybody talking about, what's Western Buddhism, or, what's American Buddhism going to look like? Don't you think it's going to be secular Buddhism? And he looked up at me after, he was signing my book. He looked up at me, and he said, there's room for all of it. And when he said that, I felt so deflated. I'm like, oh man, like
Right.
I thought I was gonna say the perfect thing, and and all of that. And I don't know how long I was bummed about that answer,
Hmm.
but I am so grateful about it now, because that kind of kick-started the whole thing about me finding some openness about this stuff. And
Right.
where I'm at now is like, all these different things, these different traditions, these different practices. And while I don't have an interest in chanting, although I do it on retreat out of respect,
Right.
I have no interest in chanting as my part of my daily practice. I know it's different flavors for everybody. There's
Yeah.
different doors. There's different,
Yeah.
some people like devotional. Some people need devotional practice. Some people need very secular practices. I'm somewhere in between. And
Yeah. I'm the
that
same
might
way, man.
change tomorrow too.
Yeah.
So,
No, I'm the same way. I take I pull a little bit from here, a little bit from there. I use what works. Right.
yeah.
I use a little bit of the Dzogchen practice sometimes, like a do nothing practice. So, like an open awareness kind of thing. I do
Yeah.
a lot of Theravada, Visuddhimagga practices. I do, a variety of things. I chant the refuges every morning. I take precepts every morning to myself just to
Yeah.
remind myself to how to go about my day. Like, let's remember, let's, take refuge in that. Let's take refuge in these precepts every morning to just propel ourselves into the day with the right state of mind, right? Like the right chitta, the right mental attitude.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how long you said you've mentioned Against the Stream a couple of times, and one thing I wanted to talk about is you said the Against the Stream retreats ended up being more like summer camp.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that a bad thing? And
I
Kali
mean,
Anita, right?
uh, it it was for me at the time because and again, so much of it is just a story I hung on to, like if I could only do one retreat a year,
Right.
and my intention was to push myself on retreat.
Right.
But if it's a summer camp atmosphere and people are sitting around smoking cigarettes and chit-chatting, it just didn't feel serious to me. And, and I wanted to get serious about my practice.
No, I feel that. Yeah. So how long were you a part of against it was the LA Sangha?
Yeah, I was specifically at the Melrose location. Like, me and Jordan Kramer, we led the very first Refuge meeting ever at Melrose.
Oh,
It
right
was
on.
Tuesday night, and then the Santa Monica with Enrique and Joseph, they led the second Refuge meeting on Thursday night. So we led the very first one in the world.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so I was there right when I got sober is when they opened the Melrose location, and so 2007, I think. Yeah, started going then. I'm bad about time. I lived kind of far from I lived in like the very north end of LA County, so it was a bit of a drive.
Huh.
And because of, I started facilitator training, and part of facilitator training was to start a group. So, I started a group in where I lived in North LA County.
Right.
And it kind of took off, and I ended up at one point I was like teaching 3 times a week there. And so I just kind of evolved out of that, and I think that's the time I picked up a monastic teacher. I was studying with Amatana Sante,
Hmm.
and just kind of evolved out of that. And
Right.
I don't know what year, but it was definitely before I moved to Portland.
Right on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm friends with a lot of the old school Against the Stream folks. That's kind of like my lineage as well. I was uh, trained through Wild Heart Meditation Center in Nashville, which used to be the Against the Stream Nashville location.
Yeah.
But I know Dave Smith and all those cats. So yeah, good people, man.
I actually Pablo and I are good friends, and we haven't lately because he started school again, but we were like every week we were having dinner and talking about things that aren't normally talked about in PC Dharma halls. Sorry, Pablo, if I'm letting out a secret.
Those are the best conversations, man. Like just
but yeah, I
honest
love
conversations.
I still I talk to Vinny every once in a while, and Mary Stankiewicz, she lives here as well. Actually supposed to have, I think, supposed to go to lunch with Mary next week.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So, yeah, stay in
Very
touch.
cool. Very cool. Yeah, I was I started doing her year to live practice last year, but like I did it for a few months, and I just wasn't, I felt like I wasn't really getting as much out of it as I've already done a lot of that work. I had leukemia when I was 13.
Oh,
And so
damn.
like I've already like had to face my own mortality at a very early age.
Yeah,
So like death is no stranger to me. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
I found my grandmother dead when I was 15. My dad died when I was 20. Like I'm familiar with death. Like
Yeah.
I've done a lot of death stuff on death already. Like I've sat with death. So but Mary's great though. Like it just wasn't clicking for me at the time,
Yeah. Yeah. That's what the year to live practice. So for anybody listening that doesn't know, Stephen Levine, Noah's dad, Noah, who started Against the Stream, Noah's dad, Stephen Levine, wrote a book called A Year to Live. And it's a book, but it's also a 365-day practice of setting a date like this. This is day 365. And on day 1 is that's when I die. So this next year, I'm going to do all these things to, kind of clean up things of my past and, life reflection and make amends and do some forgiveness and that kind of thing. So I feel complete, at the time I die. It's just a figurative thing, I personally, through the year, like early on for many years, I just kept thinking like, this is kind of a big deal. Like I don't know if I'm ready for that practice yet. Like I really want to do it. And I don't know if I'm ready for it yet. And it was, so talk about retreats,
Right.
and you can see, well, if you would have seen me years ago, I had really long hair, or, up until, a month ago, I had the super long beard, and I'm, full of tattoos, and, I'm 6'4", I'm a big dude. And I've been the biggest wimp about about practice and everything. I, to go on retreat, like I started with a day long, and then I did like a weekend day long, and then, and then worked my way up to 3 days and 4 days and 5 days, and then like I've been practicing like seriously for a few years, I think, before I did a week practice, a 7-day retreat. And when I went to that retreat, even I've been on all the, 3 and 4 day, done a bunch of those. And then I show up at this 7-day retreat, and there was still a little bit of fear, like, man, am I going to be able to do this? And there was this dude, Lawrence. I met him at an AA clubhouse where I lived in North LA County. I meet Lawrence at the retreat center, and I was like, Lawrence, this is awesome. So good to see you. Like, how long have you been meditating? He's like, oh, I've never meditated before. He's just like, I've been wanting to meditate. So I, signed up for this retreat. And that just blew my mind. Like, how in the world, and I didn't think he was going to be able to do it. And of course he did the retreat, and it was great for him. And he stuck the whole thing out. And then I find out that he had also signed up for the Year to Live practice. And previous to that, without meditating, without anything. And again, you're like, I built up this story that it was like this way bigger thing than it actually was, And so finally I've actually tried. I've started the Year to Live practice a couple times with Vinny through Spirit Rock.
Huh.
I didn't complete either one.
I did. I've tried it one time and I didn't complete it either. But it's funny. You mentioned that, actually, the story about your friend. The first time I sat a 10-day Goenka Vipassana retreat, I met this cat who had never meditated a day in his life, and he's like, I just sold my house, put all my shit into storage. And like, I'm setting out on this big spiritual journey, traveling across the country, and I'm starting it by doing this meditation retreat. And I was like, that's fucking hardcore, bro. Like, that's insanity. I couldn't imagine just diving right into a 10-day
thing. And Goenka retreat, those are pretty hardcore too.
Oh, dude, yeah, they're brutal. It's brutal.
Yeah.
Have you ever done one?
I haven't, and only because I actually was going to go on one many years ago, because it's donation only.
Right.
And at the time I asked Noah about it, and I was just like, hey, I can't really afford, a regular retreat, that's $1,500 or whatever, for the week. And what about this one? And he's just like, he just, at the time he told me I was far enough in my practice, there was no reason for me to do that.
Right. I don't know, man. I've gotten a lot out of them, but my one critique of the Goenka, well, I've got a couple of critiques actually, and those would be that, like, there's not a lot of help, right? Like, so the ATs aren't very helpful. You get a very brief amount of interview time to, if you were to be experiencing anything, some ill shit, like a lot of weird stuff comes up in practice, as it's like one of my teachers, Claude Anshin Thomas, says, it's like meditation's like sitting on a bomb and waiting for it to go off. And sometimes that's the case, and it really takes a skilled teacher to be able to like help somebody through those things. And there's just not the support that I feel like there should be. And another thing is, like, it's a little culty in the way that it's like, this is the only way. Right. Like, get out of my face with that shit. Like, there's many paths, and, like anytime anybody says this is what the Buddha taught, like this for sure is what he taught, I'm like, okay, like, are you sure? Like, you don't know. Were you there?
Yeah.
Like,
even nobody knows for sure.
Exactly. Even the suttas are, they were orally passed down for
400 years after he died is when they first wrote it down. Like,
who knows, what was changed in that time? Like, You ever played
Absolutely.
telephone? You know, like you tell one person, they tell the next person. By the time you get to the end, the message is completely different. I don't know what the Buddha taught. I have a reasonable facsimile of what we think he
Yeah.
taught, and it
Yeah.
seems to work.
Yeah.
So it's good
Yeah.
enough for me. But you know,
Yeah.
just to say, yeah, this is it. This is for sure the thing. Like, get the fuck out of here with that. You don't
Well, how about
know.
the Metta Sutta? My favorite sutta, the Metta Sutta, super small, short one, and I love the practice, my main practice. Uh, the end of the Metta Sutta, not holding to fixed views.
Yeah, that's it.
Even these.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Even these fixed views, exactly.
Don't cling.
So, and
Yeah.
that's another interesting topic is like looking at not holding fixed views in regards to things like and this is a conversation I've had with several people about like fifth precept kind of stuff, right? Like especially coming from a recovery place, like what constitutes a violation of the fifth precept, and like is it that important anyway if we're practicing a middle path? Like obviously you don't want to do shit that's going to fuck your life up, but
Yeah.
just in my experience, like I've had a lot of really beneficial experiences with psychedelics and things of that nature that have been hugely helpful for me. Like they've been
Yeah.
helpful for realization of insights and depression stuff. And I don't do them anymore because I'm in recovery. But
Yeah.
it's not like I don't see the efficacy of them. And to
Yeah.
see that, like, oh, we have to stick to this fifth precept, and if you violate this precept, when there's these substances out there that are harmless and completely beneficial and really could be a life changer for somebody, to like,
Yeah.
we get into these fixed views of like, oh, that's wrong. And it's like, well, maybe not.
Well, and again, how nothing is permanent. Everything changes. So, I was living up in Oregon, and it like psychedelics are legally, and psilocybin specifically is specifically legal to to treat different mental
Yeah.
conditions, and I think it's still kind of rolling out on how they're going to do the training for facilitators and
Yeah.
that kind of thing. But
Makes
like
sense.
shit's changing,
Yeah.
it's rather than the old like all psychedelics are drugs,
Right.
that like
Well,
a reframe, so
well, I
other
mean,
people refer to it as plant medicine.
let's be
And I
realistic.
believe that.
Well, let's be realistic. They're both. Why can't they? It's never this or that. It's always both
Yeah.
ends, right? Like,
Yeah.
sure, but yeah, they're drugs. Of course they are. They alter your mind briefly, and they alter, there is an effect on the body that happens when you consume them, but that doesn't necessarily dictate good or bad.
Yeah.
Just because has this word drug attached to it doesn't mean it's good or bad. It's your own experience. Was your experience good or was it bad? Like
Well,
that's what matters.
like everything else, it's not so much about the thing, it's about your relationship to the
Absolutely, 100%. It's
yeah.
always
Yeah.
it's always relational.
Yeah. And I mentioned I got, cocaine was my thing, and I got sober in 2007. It was thanks to mushrooms. I in the middle of a coke bender, I ate a big handful of mushrooms, purely with the intention of rocketing to outer space. And I came out of it with the clearest insight that it was an uncomfortable trip. It wasn't a bad trip, but
Yeah.
it was uncomfortable. But I came out of that with the clearest insight that I had to stop doing everything. And I really think it was the mushrooms gave me that, up
Yeah.
until that point, I knew I had a problem with cocaine and hard drugs, but
Right.
not with everything.
It's funny that you say that, because like one of the biggest things I've noticed from my psychedelic experiences were stop doing drugs.
Yeah.
It's like one of the big messages is
Well,
stop doing drugs.
and I previous to getting sober, like, and living in Florida, in the was there like 1989 to 96, and every time it rained, mushrooms just grew everywhere.
Oh yeah, they're everywhere.
And I hung out with
Well, not
drug
anymore.
buddies and stuff, so acid was LSD was around everywhere. I ate a ton of psychedelics. I really like psychedelics, and I never had a scary trip, like freak out. Which I don't know, because all the trauma I have, I don't know how, not, but it was those early experiences with psychedelics where I did feel a realization of interconnection, and I felt unconditional love and unconditional compassion for all beings,
Yeah.
and then, getting sober and then practicing and, getting deeper and deeper in my practice and realizing I can experience some of these things without
Yeah.
substances and without, certain conditions.
Well, that's what Ram Dass,
Yeah.
ultimately said was like, the psychedelics help you walk in the garden for a little while, but you always got to leave.
Yeah.
With the practice, like you get to stay in the garden forever.
Yeah.
And that's been the case for me too, which is why I don't do any of that shit anymore. But, it doesn't mean that there's not efficacy in it,
Yeah.
And so one thing I wanted to talk to you about, because you kind of like some of my stuff on Instagram. Like, what do you think about and this generally wouldn't be a Dharma conversation, but it is a Dharma conversation because it has to do with suffering. It has to do with the end of suffering, and it has to do with the realization of truth. And like, what do you think about the political landscape right now, man? It's kind of a abysmal shit show, isn't it?
It is. And, being in America, it's kind of scary, like, the options we have suck. And, this is how I'm just speaking for me.
Right. No.
I think, between the two parties, we have, two horrible choices.
Hmm.
Especially after that last debate.
Ooh, that was rough.
Debate.
Did you see
Like,
the most recent thing, the President Putin and
oh, I heard about that. Yeah, I
dude,
didn't
it
see
was
it, but I heard something about it.
it's so bad. It's so bad.
Yeah,
And
Trump.
again, compassion. Like he shouldn't be. Let that man retire. Like,
Yeah,
stop
step
pushing him to
down.
try. Stop pushing him to try to run.
Yeah,
It's somebody's like,
let
no,
somebody
no, you
else
do it, do
younger
it.
that's more with it. Yeah, step up.
Dude, my honest opinion, I want to see Robert Kennedy on the Democratic ticket. I think,
I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind.
like, just out of everybody's platform, like his is the one that I agree with the most, right? Like he's just across the board.
You talked about social media. I don't know if you saw I posted a picture, and then I posted a video. I think just
Jon
yesterday.
Stewart?
I reposted it about the whole thing about let's all band together and push Jon Stewart to step up.
I did see that. Yeah, I did see that.
Let's get Jon Stewart in there.
I'd take Jon Stewart or RFK, quite honestly.
Yeah. He
But
doesn't
like,
want to be president, which makes him the best choice for being president.
I like RFK because like he's me, man. Like he goes to the gym every day, he goes hiking, he has a spiritual practice, he's in recovery. Like I see so much of myself in him. And so, and I like to think that I'm a pretty good judge of people. Just I get vibes. You know what I'm saying? I catch vibes off people, and I'm pretty good at reading people. I always have been, and it's gotten just deeper as my practice has evolved. But like he just genuinely appears to have just a good heart, and to like honestly want to help people, and that's fucking what we need, man. He's talking about cutting military spending and putting that money into like childcare and stuff, and like these social programs, legalizing marijuana and using the tax revenue from that to fund these like holistic rehab centers that anybody could go to for depression or drug abuse or anything for free. And like that's a beautiful idea. And if he could actually make that happen, it would be wonderful. Right? Like the idea itself is great. Whether that could actually be put into fruition or not, who knows? But like fuck, we got to have hope, right? If we don't have faith, then what are we doing?
Yeah. I'm not optimistic about this election that's going to happen.
Something's going to happen.
But that, like, my teacher and so many other whether teachers or practitioners that I'm connected to, so many of us like to say, this is what we're practicing for. It doesn't look good. It's scary. Project 2025. That's a fucking nightmare. It could very well happen.
What's interesting, and this is something that an insight that I've had within just the past, few days, really, like, and it's always kind of been there, but it's been really, really blatantly clear for the past couple of days. Is like, it's actually, I grew up saying, being told we don't talk about religion and politics. And it's like, these are the two things that we absolutely need to talk about. And they shouldn't be incredibly intertwined, but they are in such a way, like across the board, because, in a sense, when we're looking at like the far right, where we're looking at like Christian extremists and things of that nature, generally, when we're looking at the far left, we're looking at very sciency, woke, science has become the religion in a sense, for that. And, but it's what's crazy to me is like, if we're talking about the Dharma and we're talking about viewing reality as it is, and we're talking about compassion, if we're talking about wisdom and compassion, if we're just talking about wisdom and compassion, like ultimately, as much as I don't want to really have to, like, I don't want to be involved in the political landscape, like I have to, because it's my job as somebody who does everything that I can to like end suffering and spread the Dharma and like try to like instill these teachings in people and help them see through all this bullshit. Like I feel like it's my responsibility to get involved, because there, no matter who gets elected, it's going to alter reality in a sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's going to alter the way that we have to play the game. I mean, reality itself, base reality, overarching reality doesn't change, but the causes and conditions surrounding it do. And that's, it's a big thing. It's a fucking big deal.
It is. And we've been shown how apathy ends up with, pretty bad results,
Right.
So many people, when Hillary was running up against Trump, at least the people I were connected to, everybody thought that like there's no way that Hillary's gonna. I mean, Trump's insane. He's not gonna win. Of course Hillary's gonna do it. And so many of those same people were just like, well, it's really obvious that Hillary's gonna win, so I'm not gonna vote. And that apathy is what changed things.
Inaction is still action. The not doing it, not doing is still doing.
Yeah. I what the way it looks right now, and American politics can change on a dime. Like something could happen, and be on the news tonight and change things drastically.
100%.
Right now, it looks like it's going to be, Biden versus Trump, and as much as Biden is, I don't think he's all there anymore. And I think he's on a decline mentally. To me, he's still well, how about I just don't want Trump.
And see, that's most people.
And to me, I don't want to write in unless there's some crazy movement where I think it's viable. I don't want to throw away my vote.
Right. So, and that kind of goes to my point is like, as long as we hold that, like, because a lot of people hold that view, anybody but Trump. There's a lot of people that I know that personally hold that view. Anybody but Trump, like they would rather put a werewolf in office than see Trump elected.
I would love a werewolf.
that would be fucking awesome if that would be really cool. But
how cool, man! Somebody's got to make a movie of that.
We're not far off. We're not far off. It's going to happen within our lifetime for sure. But
American Werewolf in Washington.
Yeah, American Werewolf in the White House. But ultimately, like, yeah, it is going to take a movement, right? Like, because if I can't see voting. Obviously, I'm not going to vote for Trump, and I'm obviously not going to vote for Biden because I don't agree with the far left landscape either. Like, I don't agree with a lot of the politics of the far left. I just don't, because it's not, they're trying to alter reality is what they're trying to do. In my view, like, that's the way it seems to me. And then we get the added bonus that like, all of their donors are on both sides are like BlackRock and Vanguard, like, owned companies, right? So like BlackRock owns NBC, and it owns CNN, and it owns MSNBC, and it owns Fox, and it owns everything, right? They own, like, between BlackRock and Vanguard, they own everything. And so both sides are being funded by these two companies. And so it's like, who do you believe, right? Like, can you trust either of these parties? No, you can't, because they're bought and paid for. All of the media swing that we see on Fox News, on CNN, pitting one side against the other, is all paid for by the same parent companies. And so, like, everything's brought to you by Pfizer, and it's like, it's fucking, it's terrifying, man.
Yeah.
It's terrifying, and it is going to take a movement, and that's why like I'm so like gung ho and like really like trying to push Kennedy as much as I can, because I do think he's the right man for the job. Do I think he has a chance? Honestly, I do. I do think he has a chance, because I think it's rapidly unfolding, and people are like, because again, if we just show truth, we can see reality as it is. And if we look at, like, it's clear that Trump's insane and Biden is incompetent, unfortunately. Like, and I'm not trying to belittle him. I'm not punching down. I'm saying that's the reality of the situation. We've seen that numerous times now, and we've seen it for years. And so, like, we need somebody that gives a fuck. Like,
well, talk about wisdom and compassion. Let's get wisdom and compassion in office. Let's get
that's it.
wisdom and compassion.
That's all I want. That's what I want to see in the office.
Overseeing America in the Western world, and it's the whole othering, the whole right versus left.
Yeah.
You're right. You mentioned Facebook earlier. I made one meme. I put a thing that said, this is a few years ago, but Facebook is Dukkha. that was my meme.
Oh, I've got a funny thing I've got to send you.
Nobody, all the stuff online and the arguments, nobody is changing anybody's mind.
Oh no, not at all.
And that's such a waste of time.
What it takes is honest conversations.
Yeah.
Like, not on the computer, like this. It takes these kinds of conversations. It takes in-person conversation. Exactly. It takes having an open mind and being able to see all perspectives and see things as they are, not as we want them to be.
This is an interesting conversation about, because you brought it up. That there's the in America anyway, and I think it's the same way in Canada, but there's the assumption that if you're Buddhist, you're on the left. You're liberal. Buddhism equals liberal politics.
Well, yeah, and I think that's there's that assumption for a reason, because I do see a lot of Dharma teachers pushing a lot of far left ideology.
Yeah, but it's also swung so far left, and we have this whole thing about with wokeism and gender politics and all that kind of thing. And some of the woke, this is my viewpoint, some of the woke viewpoints are as militaristic as
100%.
As the stuff that's coming from the right.
Absolutely. I was having that conversation with a friend of mine the other day. I was like, they're the same at this point. Like, they're the same. Like, they might be different ends of the field and have different views, but as far as their tactics and the way they approach things, as far as their action and their karma, like, that shit's the same, man. You got one side of, like, and I hate to use this word, but you got one side of, calling it one side fascist, and they're both kind of like fascists in a way.
Yeah.
One's trying to control what you can do, and the other one's trying to control what you can say.
A thing that I've been really disappointed in, and it's coming from a lot of Buddhists or just all the people that I'm connected to that are liberal, on the left, of this like militaristic, you have to support Palestine,
right?
And I got it. This is going to piss some people off, but I don't support jihadists.
Yeah.
I don't
support any war fought in the name of any religion.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen a war fought in the name of Satan? Not one.
Like, there's claims of the other side.
Yeah, not one. I've never seen a war fought in the name of Satan, but you see, like, a lot of them fought in the name of God.
And there's this. I just see this, on the left, of people saying like, well, if you have a voice, you're a Buddhist teacher, you need to say stuff to support Palestine. I don't need to do anything, and I don't believe that,
Right.
It's disappointing to me. It's really been it's been really unbelievable to see how this whole thing's played out with propaganda on both sides.
Absolutely.
Not
Yeah.
just this issue, but with so many other things. But
Oh
like
yeah.
this particular one with Israel and Palestine, like, man, there's just so much propaganda, and nobody's right. That's the thing.
Well,
I don't think that Israel's doing the right thing, but
well,
also I don't support jihadists and
right. I mean, and we could, and we could extend this conversation to Ukraine and Russia as well, and different circumstances, but same
of course.
difference. And
Yeah.
it's like, and it all boils down to like the fires of the mind, right? Like the poisons of the mind. It all boils down to greed, hatred, and delusion,
Yeah.
essentially, right? So like you have one group trying to take land, greed, from another group. In both cases, both Ukraine and Russia and Gaza and Israel, it's the same scenario. And when we talk about Israel and Gaza, we start getting like religion involved in it a little bit, but then there's this hatred of the other side,
Yeah.
and it's all delusion because they can't see the reality that it is, that like we're all just here and we're doing our thing, and like we're all just fucking doing the best we can, right?
Yeah, and we're I mean, we're kind of experiencing a very similar thing. It's not as hardcore with violence and all that, but like it's a similar thing here in the States with the right and the left. Of
Absolutely.
like,
100%.
I'm the only one right and you're absolutely wrong. And and if you're wrong, that means you're a pedophile and you're connected to the devil. Talk about Satan and all that kind of stuff.
Well, and again, it comes right.
The othering that happens is just ridiculous.
Yeah, that's insane. And then it all again comes right down to like holding fixed views and beliefs.
Yeah.
Like, and then again, these are just thoughts and thoughts.
And the reality is, you and I mean, we're on different coasts.
Yeah.
And there's it's a little more polarizing on the coast, but then you have the middle of America, and we're all in this boat together. MLK, we've arrived in different ships, but we're all in this boat together.
That's it.
And that's Palestine, Israel, Ukraine, Russia. Like, you're there. You live in these areas. Figure out a way to coexist.
Well, not even that. Like we're the earth itself is the boat, right? Like we're all on this boat together. Like, can we all just fucking can we all goddamn
borders and regions? It's all
bullshit. It doesn't exist. It's fucking made up.
Identities and all that. It's just labels.
It's concepts.
Yeah.
It's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. Yeah. I think that's probably a good place to wrap it up.
How many people turn politics?
I hope they stay on board.
That was a Buddhist teacher and he doesn't support Palestine.
You've got two Dharma practitioners here saying that they don't support either of those wars. Yeah, imagine that. Imagine not taking any side because I see both sides and being like, yeah, stop killing each other. I can love each other.
The answer to me is compassion.
Absolutely. It's always compassion.
And I don't want to see anybody being killed. I don't want to see little kids being killed. I don't want to see adults being killed. I don't want to see anybody being, othered and oppressed because of a religion or because of race or because of gender or anything like that. Well,
it's funny. I want to just bring something up. It's funny when you using the idea of othering, which is a real thing. Like we do that all the time. We're always othering. It's interesting that like seeking inclusion, like the far left gender politics, identity politics groups are so adamant about pushing this concept of, oh, I am this or I am that. And again, it just comes down to like it's thoughts, right? Like it's thoughts. Like we can think that we're something, but it doesn't necessarily make us that fucking thing. Like the reality is just what the reality is. But like by further like trying to create all these different pronouns and put themselves in all these different boxes, like all they're doing is creating further division. That's really all that's happening, is they're further dividing themselves and further like adding more identity, heaping more identity on top of an already polluted system. You know what I'm saying? Just by being a human, it's polluted with all these conditions and labels and bullshit, and then like just heaping more on top of it. And it ultimately is like pushing further away from what awakening really is, in my opinion.
Well, and so much,
it's probably an unpopular opinion.
It's not people bring up these things or fight these things with the intention of stopping the conversation rather than continuing the conversation so that we can understand each other and become compassionate and, you know,
Right.
and empathetic and all these things that are healing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Cool, man. Well, hey,
yeah.
thanks so much for taking the time to have this long, lengthy, fucking really good conversation. I think we had a great conversation, honestly. But
Yeah.
it's been fun.
Yeah. Well,
You,
thanks for asking me. And
yeah.
uh, I am so glad that you're doing your thing in Florida because I lived there, you know, and I remember just, you know, it's also relative, but me being, you know, pretty much raised in Southern California and then moving there and then really seeing racism and homophobia
Oh yeah.
and, you know, and the Bible Belt and born again Christians and
Yeah, yeah.
evangelicals and stuff, like seeing that firsthand where it wasn't just a story anymore. And like, you
Oh
know,
yeah, that's been my whole life experience. Like I grew up here. Like I've seen that shit my whole life, which is why I'm so like again, you know what I mean? Like I'm on the other side of the fence from
yeah,
that shit.
yeah,
Because like
yeah.
you know,
But it's that's not everybody that's there. There's
no,
great
it's not.
Dharma there,
No,
and
there's
there's yeah,
there's
there's
you're gonna
yeah,
yeah, it's like we were talking about earlier. You're gonna get a little from column A, you're gonna get a little from column B, and you're gonna get some in the middle. You know,
yeah,
like it's gonna be a mixed bag.
yeah,
But ultimately, again, we're all just fucking humans having a human experience and like fucking just love each other. Damn. Have
yeah,
compassion
yeah.
for each other.
Love
Life's
above
hard.
all.
Life's
Yeah,
hard. Like,
yeah,
don't be a dick.
yeah. Hey, Justin,
What?
I love
I love you too, man. So,
it.
where can people find you at if they wanted to harass you and send you hate mail about your stance on Palestine?
Facebook. No, well, I'm
Facebook, Instagram.
well, yeah, what Boundless Heart Dharma on Instagram and I don't know, Gary Sanders PDX on Twitter, and I think that I think you can look up and that's that. I've been back in LA for 4 years and I'm still using Gary Sanders PDX on so many
Might be time to switch it up.
usernames or whatever. Yeah, yeah. But
Cool.
yeah, I'm on, you know, different, and I think TikTok too, Boundless Heart Dharma. Yeah.
Word.
I would say my website is boundlessheartdharma.com. It's been under construction forever. It's just a bunch of gibberish like placeholders. But if you go to the media page, there's a whole bunch of meditations for free that you can stream. So yeah,
Nice.
not trying to charge any money for it.
Sweet. Awesome. Thank you, man.
Yeah, man.